Recently, I've been hearing a lot of friends going through the same thing. It's like, oh my gosh, you're also feeling a little lost in your 20s. It almost feels like this topic that's a lot of people have in common, but nobody really talks too much about it. Feeling energized?
Feeling energized.
Okay. Hi, everyone.
Welcome.
Welcome to ONL. Welcome to our channel. So this is our first episode, first chapter of what I want to call ONL Pillow Chats.
Welcome if you've never been here, which you probably have never been part of this channel before because it's very new and we're exploring what it looks like, where it goes, where it takes us. And today we're jumping in to explore a topic that's been on our minds and very much experienced by Liora.
I think where this topic started is that I feel like I've been in a quarter life crisis or feeling lost in your 20s, in your early 20s. Recently, I've been hearing a lot of friends going through the same thing, and it kind of consumes your life. So I think it's a fun conversation to have.
So let's start from defining what it is that we're talking about.
So I can talk about my experience.
Your experience.
Should I say my story about the deal? Can you stop? In high school, quite early, I decided that I want to go into the healthcare. At that point, I had this fork. I could either go towards the med school path or the nursing path. I didn't really struggle then. I think it was pretty easy for me. So I was like, okay, nursing is the goal. Then I went on to university, very structured. So, you don't really think about your life other than your, far goal of being a nurse. And then over time, I knew that I wanted to be a labor and delivery nurse. I found passion towards everything that has to do with pregnancy and birth, and it was a really strong passion. And so I worked hard, I graduated nursing, I got my first job in labor and delivery in the best hospital you can get a labor and delivery nurse in Toronto. I never questioned a lot of things about my choices. The beginning stages felt great because I finally was in this environment I was really passionate about, and I got to be part of birth, and that felt so incredibly rewarding. And I still feel the same about it. I still have a lot of gratitude for my work. But as soon as I got comfortable with my job, I started thinking, okay, I reached the ultimate goal that I had for myself. What now? What next? I never thought past it. I never thought so far.
What happened to you over the past couple of years?
Like I said, I started thinking about, okay, what's next? And the feelings that came is, okay, I'm 24. I can't call it in my career. The ways to grow in nursing is you can go into management, which I didn't want to do administrative stuff, or you can continue your education and become a nurse practitioner. And it's been now about a year and a half, and I haven't really found a definitive answer. And it's almost like I'm in a cycle of, okay, what do I want to do? First of all, I think it starts with an inner journey of wait, but what is it that I want out of life? What is the type of job I want in 10, 20 years? And it's complex because of the income. It's what kind of mother I want to be, or what kind of, how much freedom do I want to have? How much autonomy do I want to have?
So now, where we are today, how do you feel about nursing, about your career, about the future?
I think there's a lot of issues with the nursing career. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost a slave to the system because it's like a never ending grind. And yes, maybe the terms for nurses are getting better over time, but we're worked to the bone. I think when I work a few shifts in a row, I feel lifeless. It sucked everything out of me. Now I have a few days to recharge and go right back into it. There's less autonomy over your life. So I think I really value the ability to explore and go travel. With nursing, at least where I am at, it's you can't just pick up and go whenever you want. You have to request vacation at least a year in advance, and most of the time it doesn't get approved, and you have to just constantly ask permission and oftentimes get a no. And then the growth is sort of a blurry gray area. So I'm lost. Hence this video, because I don't really know where to take it, because I know the issues in my job. I do love the part of it that's like birth and labor, but it feels like it's trapping me and confining me to one particular type of lifestyle.
And this dilemma that you have, how do you cope with it?
The first thing to dealing with the feeling of being lost or with the quarter life crisis is to acknowledge it and give it space and tell yourself that's totally fine. I'm feeling lost. Let's just embrace the feeling. Let's embrace this chapter in our life. So I think in the past, I've had times where I didn't acknowledge a lot of inner feelings. I didn't give them space, just because I think oftentimes you get a little bit lost in the societal expectations, the expectations of your community, the expectations of your close friends and your family, and you forget to check in with what is it that you want? What is it that Liora wants? So as soon as I started feeling it, it took a while to process and acknowledge, okay, I'm actually feeling lost. But as soon as I did acknowledge and give it space, then it has become a topic of conversation.
Can you try to share that metaphor you told me about the Liora inside that's trapped?
I feel like my struggle, my inner struggle, is also figuring out what I want and not what society told me that I need to want. So it's almost like I told Ocean this analogy. It's like there's two strings, or yeah, two strings is what Liora wants and what society tells her that she needs to want, and then they feel sometimes that they're very tangled together. And for me, it's hard to sometimes look at my string and know exactly, okay, this is what Liora wants. Like, I'm uncertain about a lot of things because I don't know what it is that I truly want. And I think it comes from the impacts of society, of like what I was told when I was growing up, what I was told by my family, what I was told by my community, and all these things. So I think I've been on a journey since I felt lost. I've been on a journey of untangling these two strings and figuring out, okay, this is me, this is what I want, and this is what I'm expected to want from others. And I don't have the answers, but I think that's sort of the inner work that I've been doing. And I don't know if there's an answer. Maybe it's not possible to fully untangle the two, because at the end of the day, we are the result of our environment. But I've just trying to stay very truthful to myself and listen to her. Another analogy
Who's her?
Another analogy I gave Ocean earlier is sometimes when I get in the limbo of the everyday life, like working my nursing job, coming home, walking Theo, our dog, having the weekend, seeing some friends on the weekend, going back to work like Monday to Friday, the limbo of life, I forget about what it is that I actually want sometimes. So I was telling Ocean that when I get into that limbo, when I don't give space to these feelings of I'm feeling lost, what is it that I want, I feel like there is an inner Liora inside of me that's sort of like sitting in this cave, like this dark little cave that she's trapped, it feels like, and she is trying to voice herself. And I usually like subconsciously kind of don't give her space, or I kind of push her away because it's scary, because what if she tells me that, you know, I don't want my nursing job, I don't want to live in Canada, and I would want to like leave everything and move somewhere else and just leave my whole life behind. Maybe that's not what she wants, but maybe it is. So it's a scary place to let yourself go.
And have you found that you've been letting that inner dimmed Liora shine brighter lately?
I, I can say that I think she was kind of dimmed for a long time until my quarter life crisis started, when I slowly started to, you know, sometimes let her in a little bit and talk to her, But when you like start talking to her, that's when all the two strings that are tangled are super tangled. So like it's like I think that groundwork of untangling has started in the beginning of this lost journey, and I think I've slowly been untangling it. So when I'm untangling, what I mean by that is that I'm trying to like hear her out, and I think almost the climax of this journey has been our wedding in Costa Rica, because it was obviously an incredible experience. But what was beautiful about it is that we disconnected from our limbo lives. And in Costa Rica, I felt so present, and I didn't think too much about tomorrow, a minute from now, what happened in the past. I was just there. And there was no big responsibilities like jobs or pets or bills. You were surrounded in nature, which like naturally grounds you, and it's like constant meditation when you're in nature,
and a constant exploration of novel
yeah,
moments and experiences, and
having our closest people there, which makes it a space of love and acceptance, and being in a beautiful culture, Costa Rican culture. Just everything all around was a beautiful breeding ground for deep self-reflection and a beautiful, beautiful check-in with myself. So it's almost like I had so much clarity. So all of a sudden I was able to like really talk to that inner Liora. Like I was like, okay, like dream big, forget about everything that people tell you or you're expected or ever expected in your lifetime. What is it that you are seeking? What is it that you want?
And earlier you mentioned that when you let that inner Liora out, there's a degree of uncertainty um,
Yeah.
that comes with it, and that's that initially why she was dimmed, because it's scary, that degree of uncertainty of the future, of what's next. How do you then now cope with that uncertainty? Are there any mental exercises you do? Is there any approach that you take from an internal decision making process with respect, because that uncertainty hasn't changed?
I think I am I'm arranging my life or trying to arrange my life in a way that gives space to her. Like the first time this was the first time I chose to even consider, you know, taking down a few hours of work and maybe allow some hobbies to come out and evolve. So I think I'm slowly giving her some space in my life. So it feels nice to like, you know, follow my heart. This is basically what it is, following your heart and understanding what your heart wants. And also, like, obviously it was tremendously helpful talking to you about it and like bringing you into this journey of the inner Liora, because I think in Costa Rica you really stepped into that cave with me, and together we just drank, and it felt amazing. It felt so energizing. It felt so freeing. And then I think you're helping me in a way by like helping me realistically plan how we can make some of her dreams come true.
And there's two items that come out of that. The first one, with respect to what sounds like a shift in your perspective of what that inner Liora offers. It sounds like at first, inner Liora, what she threatened to do was shake up your life, which seemed like a threat. And it seems like you've shifted to perceive that inner Liora as an opportunity to lead change in your life, not necessarily to shake your life or anything of a threatening nature, but let her lead you and let yourself lead opportunities that you may have not recognized were valuable, and in the past, because of those entangled strings, seemed like a threat to what society wants out of you. And the other piece that I think is important to flag, and eager to hear your thoughts, and we talked about this quite a bit, is the importance of in a partnership, when one has a crisis of their existential framework. I think it's very easy for the other, and I've experienced it myself, to almost take a degree of ownership over your experience and feel like the same crisis that you're going through may be impacting me. And then there can easily be a response that's offensive, like almost like those strings, like whoa, where your crisis, so what happens with all of my expectations, X, Y, and Z. And I think what's very important that we do very well is to recognize that your experience and what you're going through is yours, and that I'm here to help and support and guide. But if I don't give you the space to experience that and to let you embrace what it means to have a little midlife or quarter life crisis, then you don't have the space to do it. And then I end up being another string that limits your ability to explore what it is Liora wants. And something that we did very well in Costa Rica is I stopped resisting dreaming. Even though sometimes the dreams may have been yours or mine or whatever that might be, there was a willingness to let the dream unfold, at least in the thought. And that allowed, especially you, I think, the space to really let that drive your thoughts. And I think it also helped me a lot because I then was able to give you that space to dream, to give you that mental area that isn't resisted by any expectation on my part. And the challenge that continues to be part of the reality of a partnership is reconciling those dreams in ways that enable us to continue manifesting our dreams together.
Exactly. And I think that's what we're doing now.
Right.
Hence ONL.
Hence ONL.
But what is I want to hear if you have like something similar inside or.
So I for a long time in my life wanted to be a producer, editing and directing and producing creations and films and things of that nature. And what drove me the most is the artistic side of it, of being able to impact people emotionally and spread ideas in ways that are unconventional. And that was also very much connected to my eagerness to lead generally, in a political sense, in a community sense. And so I kind of found a connection from my drive to produce to then study political science, which then led me to want to gain the tools to do that in my day-to-day life, which meant...
So was your goal to lead then?
My goal from a very young age was to lead, whether that's lead ideas, initiatives, projects. And I found, before I was in law and litigation, it always seemed like law was the foundation of our society, and having the tools of the foundation of our society would give me and equip me with the ability to lead in a variety of senses. And my job now as a litigation lawyer is very much to lead the advocacy around a conflict, around an issue, around a dispute, with the intention of resolving the issues for my clients.
Do you ever feel like you had a hard time understanding what Ocean wants versus what's expected of Ocean?
So in second year of university, I questioned what's the point. I questioned what's the point of everything. The education, what's the point of striving for a particular goal, and what's the point of it all? And really, there is no point, right? We are eventually going to die. So the meaning that we attach to what drives us is a choice we subconsciously make, sometimes consciously, in order to keep us going through life. And that's the beauty that I discovered through that existential crisis, is that power of choice, that the ability to choose for something to be meaningful. And at the time, when I arrived going through my own little existential questioning, was the choice that I always found meaningful is discovery and exploration. Always ended up being at the core of what I found meaningful. And so I always went back to thinking and feeling. Those are the two core components of discovery. Either we're discovering thoughts or we're discovering emotions or experiencing those emotions. And those always ended up being at the core of what motivates me. So when it comes to my career, when it comes to our relationship, when it comes to music festivals, travel, challenging the way I think or challenging the way I feel, or eliciting emotions that I don't regularly experience, ends up being the motivation.
So what I'm trying to figure out is to see whether there's an answer or a solution to a midlife crisis that you found that can be applied to my life.
At the end of the day, there are two options. As you highlighted, you can always continue in your path, and if you find a way, and you can always find a way to be content, then you just continue down that path, or you find alternate.
So this whole conversation about finding a way to be content, I hear it a lot, but a question always comes into my mind. And now maybe that we have an analogy to describe the inner Liora, I can actually express this thought. And this thought is, how do I know that by choosing to be content, how do I know that I'm not choosing to just confine to that societal string?
Right, and that's a question that you'll be asking yourself for the rest of your life, because at the end of the day, there are so many subconscious influences on what we do, starting from birth, right? Because we are socialized into a particular culture, into a particular framework. And that's why I ended up always going back to the word choice, because you'll always simply have to choose the extent of your affiliation with the framework. So, for example, if you've decided that nursing is what you want to do, you can choose to now give it enough meaning to satisfy that, while choosing to fill the various other areas of your life with further meaning or further objectives.
I guess that's what I'm doing. I'm giving space to other things that feel right. So I guess currently right now you're in a place that's sort of similar to where I began feeling my quarter life crisis, and not age-wise, but you've gone to school for, what is it, like 8 years of school, and you have finally reached this big goal of yours, which is becoming a lawyer. How do you feel reaching your goal now?
So I always tell you this, I don't think there's an end to my goal. My goal doesn't ever end. My view on life is the act of striving is what gives my current my current place or position in my career meaning. And I recognize it's not the answer you're looking for, but it is how I function. Meaning, for example, if I have a boring task to do, all I have to do in order for it no longer to be boring is to identify its value in that process of striving.
You see a ladder in front of you, and
not a ladder. I see opportunities, and I try to reframe the way that I view my current moment. So, for example, I'll give you an example that you can identify with. In your labor and delivery job, you have particular tasks that you need to undertake. Those tasks might be boring sometimes. Then all of a sudden a doctor walks in and he's doing or she's doing a particular job. You can view that as, I wish I was doing that job, or let's see exactly what he's doing right now, because when I'm going to be a doula, I may have to do that if something happens. Similarly, in my situation, I may have to do some kind of drafting or some kind of document that's relatively boring. But then I'm thinking I may eventually have to do this and train someone on how to do this if this is my own practice. And so let's engage with this in a way that...
Well, okay, so I think the conclusion here is you have a bigger goal, and you see where you are now as a stepping stone there. You can look at everything that's not as exciting as a tool in your toolbox to achieve that higher goal.
And that goes for everything. So there's no finish line. There's no end all be all. There's no I'm doing this so that I can get there and then I'm done. That doesn't exist. It's always a never-ending search for the next, because it's the act of striving, the act of exploring what's next, that I find meaningful. And that perception, which I came to conclude, at least in second year, was what gave value to feeling lost, because it's stepping out of the routine, it's stepping out of the day-to-day and questioning where I'm going, that lets you question where you're going and remember that it's that process and that journey that is the purpose.
So I guess maybe I got it wrong and you correct me, but it sounds like you've identified, you're very happy with your career. You don't have questions about it. But a lot of times people go into a career and they just don't like it. It's just not for them. So they get into the limbo that I have gotten in. So it's always a question of like, am I just an unsatisfied human and I need to just be satisfied with what I have? Or is it truly not for Liora?
So the only person that can answer that is you. The only thing that I can do as your partner is give you the tools to make that choice. Neither option is wrong. You can choose.
Of course it's not wrong.
For nursing to be the career.
What's wrong is for me not to do something that I truly want inside.
And that's a choice. You decide what you want. You can decide to want stability, routine, consistency, job security. You can decide to want those things.
But also, there's certain things that are innate to who we are as people. So it's like me telling you, you can decide to like hikes.
I can.
But ocean is ocean. You don't like hikes.
But that's what I do. So in order to like the hike, I need to reframe my experience of the hike. So for example, one of the most effective ways for me is to shift the hike into a competition. So the moment it's the same hike, it's the same actions.
But when do you change things about your life? Like, what, you can always just accept where you are and find a way to be happy with it. But when do you change your life? Like, then when do you make a step to do something different? Like, you know what I mean? Like, where do you draw that line? If it's like, you know, when a person says, okay, I want to change my career, or I want to move to a different country, are they just unhappy and they'll never be happy, and because they just don't know how to choose to be happy where they are? Or they're striving towards something that aligns more with who they are as people? Like, where do you draw the line there? And that's what I'm trying to draw the line, because I've been trying to, you know, tell myself you should be happy, but that's me pushing away that Liora inside. So where is it her, and where is it what other people tell me, and I'm just like arranging my life around that?
That's the question.
That's the question.
And life, that's the question you'll continue asking yourself for the rest of your life, because it's always going to be questioning. Life is an endless amount of opportunities that you just have to choose. And sometimes too much choice can overwhelm. And sometimes you have to overwhelm yourself in order to recognize you have choice.
It's also hard because do I focus all my internal power to changing my perspective and being happy with my career as a nurse? Or do I put all my inner effort to following that inner Liora that's stuck in a cave and letting her guide what I do next?
In my experience, if I found myself in a situation where I wasn't content, I'd figure out how to feel content. That's what I would do. In terms of how to do that, I can't tell you if that means shifting your perception or changing your environment. But the objective should be to feel content.
I guess that's the quarter life crisis, is I want to feel content. That's obviously the objective. What do I need to do to get there? It's a limbo of its own. And that's okay.
Yeah. That's what we're going to continue exploring together. And it may mean that you radically change the way that you see yourself, your future, and the present moment. It may mean that you don't radically change that, but you change certain things. It may mean that you don't change anything. That's the beauty of life, is that you once you recognize you have that choice, it can be overwhelming, but it can also be liberating. It can give you the power to recognize that it is all in your control.
Also, like, if I were to be a future Liora right now, and if I would reflect back on present Liora and find out that she didn't change anything about her life and just everything stayed exactly the same, I would be disappointed in her. That means you felt like you should do something different or try something different, but you never had the balls to do it, basically.
So if the reason you're not changing life is because of the fear of failure or the fear of the unknown, then that's not a good reason not to change your life, in my view.
I think it's the fear. It's just the discomfort of doing something that's outside my comfort zone. That's number one. Number two is discipline. Because every time you pick up something new, a new skill, you have to stay disciplined with yourself to actually make it happen. And I say number three is because I'm not just by myself anymore. I have my family, I have you, and obviously we have the pets and our responsibilities, our mortgage. So whatever choices I make, there is a family relying on me. There's my partner that's building my life with me. I can't be reckless. I can't just fully let loose. Or maybe one day, if you know, we have an income that allows me to just quit my job and just, you know, follow my heart and do whatever the heck I want. But I have to be careful. I have to be calculated. I have to think about money. I have to think about you. And I want to think about these things because I love our life. I love building our life together. So it's another variable. So obviously I'm trying to be calculated and be smart about it. But I think I've made at least a little mental progress about the changes I want to make. And I'm slowly working towards that.
Yeah. And I think that at the beginning of our relationship, especially when we just moved in, I was a little more resistant to radically reorganizing the way our future looked, whether that meant where we live or what we do. And I think that over the past year or two, especially recently, I've become a lot more willing to consider alternate futures that are much different than the status quo. And it excites me as well. And I think something beautiful that happened after we got married is, for the first time, there became a foundation to our family that gave me the stability to be flexible. Because before, one of the reasons that I would be resistant to radically changing my life would be, at the core, a fear of loneliness, a fear of being alone, a fear of leaving my community, a fear of being lost. And getting married and creating a solid foundation of what it means to now have a family between you and I gives me that confidence and assurance, really, that no matter where we end up living, we have each other and we have our family. And so, of course, still community is one of my top reasons to prioritize still having Toronto as our home. But I think after getting married, being willing to dream, I'm now
That's beautiful.
more flexible.
That's beautiful.
And I think this is a great moment to thank anyone who's still watching, because if you lasted this late into the video, first of all, thank you.
Maybe it's mom and dad. Thanks, mom and dad.
Thank you for still listening, and we hope that our experiences and thoughts and chats have positively impacted you, or at the very least led you to relate and question and recognize that you're not alone in what you're feeling.
Yeah.
And if you don't yet feel this, if you ever feel a little lost, recognize that you're not alone then.
Yeah. I think, as I said right in the beginning, I'm finding out that a lot of people are experiencing this. And it's a big tornado of experiences and of emotions. It's like your foundations of what you thought you are, that you want, are shaken up. And then me and Ocean, we do tend to dig very, very deep. So if you stuck around, kudos to you. Oh, all the pets are saying goodbye.
They all want to say bye.
This is Miley right here, and this is Tito. You've been waiting to get attention the whole time, didn't you?